And by his gifts, the dreamer provides. They brought this war to our world, but we shall end it, whatever it takes.
Howdy do, Exiles. 3.27 is upon us. The reveal went really well. And I'm here to showcase to you guys the finally finished, 99% done. I still need to go through and like double check everything. SRS, minion instability, full POB guide, level 1 to 100. This is a hyper efficient POB, great build, all content viable except for some choice Ubers that quite frankly just don't vibe well with the build. And so, but for the most part, you'll be able to do everything you need to do, almost to your heart's content. It's tanky. It does a crap ton of damage. It's like a 3-button build. It's really chill. And I've been doing this build, golly, like 9 leagues now, maybe longer. I can't remember. Probably a little bit longer. Anyways, I've been meaning to update this to a full POB. So this is one of the league starters that I'm presenting to you guys, the POB community, and the lovely people that support me on this channel. And we're going to get into it. First things first, some of the things that have changed and an explanation of how the build even works. So if you're like a veteran player, you probably don't even need to watch most of this. Or if you've played this build before and used my POB, you probably don't need to, be in this first portion. This is really for like new players that really don't know how this concept works or this mechanic works. But this is what we're going to go over, right? Okay, so there are things that you need to know. First things first, let's get our brush tool. We're going to, this is our character, right? I'm going to show you how minion instability works and the functionality of it. And here's our wand. Boop. And it's just like, radiating stuff, whatever. Got his wand. He's ready to go. All right, let's say we're in Mudflats level 4. All right, we just picked up minion instability. Here's how it works. Minions explode when reduced to low life. That's 50% in PoE 1. And once they reach that threshold, they explode, dealing 33% of their life as fire damage to surrounding enemies in a specific radius AoE. They have a base duration of 5 seconds. They're non-targetable, but they can be damaged by area effect and just like, catching stray bullets in the field. You know what I mean? And so there are multiple ways to take them down to 50% low life threshold, right? But the most efficient and reliable way to do that is using the Infernal Legion support. Now, what this does is when you link it to SRS, they take 40% of their max life as fire damage per second, and then they also deal to enemies near them a set amount of scaling fire damage per second, right? That is good in the campaign, but it's kind of worthless in the end game. It does not scale very well, and it's not a portion of the damage that we're even remotely concerned about. Our only goal is to get the SRS from the instant it's summoned to low life threshold as quick as humanly possible. And we do that during the campaign through the use of Infernal Legion support. It may take a stray bullet somewhere and it may pop sooner than expected. It doesn't matter. As long as they explode, right? So you summon, right? And then we got like let me get my brush out here, right? We got like a really bad dude here, really nasty. I'm not very good at these, and I don't think he's going to be all that, dangerous looking. But this is our dude nonetheless. And he's just, he's not having a good day. It looks like a bunny that needs a little bit of work, whatever. So you summon, right? And they travel right? And then here they are. Here, let's say we summon 3 SRS, and they're beating on them. They're just smacking the shit out of them. So here's the thing, right? They take 40% of their life as fire. So it stands to reason that the more fire res that the SRS has, the slower that it will take them to degen to low life in order to reach the threshold to explode. Now, the base, I believe, the base LE res for SRS is 40. So in Act 1, they'll have 40. What we don't want to do is during the campaign, before we get the Amulet Tabukai, which we'll explain in a second, we don't want to raise that up too much. You know, you get 50, 55, you're probably still fine. But we don't want to go like crazy with getting a bunch of fire or LE res on our minions, because then it's going to take longer to explode. And the reason why that's an issue is by the time you summon them and by the time they reach their target, 5 seconds might already have elapsed. And if that's the case, then they just despawn and they never reach the threshold, which means they never explode, right? So it is really imperative that they take enough damage quick enough, i.e. have as little fire res as possible during the campaign, that by the time they reach, they're like ready to explode, right? They might get one like sucker punch off and then they just blow up in that dude's face, right? So that's the idea. You summon, they travel. As they travel, they're degenning, and then when they reach their target, they just blow up. That was a really awful explosion sound. I'm sorry, I won't do that again. And that's in a nutshell. And then this guy dies. He's gone. This is actually probably should have been a Roa, the most elite mob in the early campaign. And so that's essentially how it works. Eventually, you will upgrade to Summon Raging Spirit of Enormity, which is more or less the same thing, except you're capped at 6 Raging Spirits max, and it has a higher cast time, and you get more life out of your SRS. So that, in a nutshell, that's the concept. That's how mechanically, that's how it works. Now, when you get into mapping and possibly late campaign, you can end up getting Tabukai, which is always very cheap, unless somebody is like really hoarding it for off-meta niche purposes, like a jerk. But what this says is Summon Raging Spirits have increased duration. Really, this is a dead stat. This could be 20%, and you would still have more than enough duration the way the build is set up. Minions have negative chaos res, and the big line is Summon Raging Spirits take 20% of their max life per second as chaos damage. Right? So we're no longer doing 40% of their life as fire, and we're now doing 20% of their life as chaos. And the default res for chaos is 20%. Right? For fire, it's 40, but they also take 40. It's 20, but they take 20. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll combine this Infernal Legion in my link setup plus the necklace, and then they degen even faster. Right? And then you get these like really snappy pops. So that's whenever I say pop, that's what I mean. The instant they are summoned, by the time they explode, I call the explode a pop. And it's all about pop time. Waiting for your SRS to pop is just like it sucks. It's terrible. It feels bad. So I've built the POB and I've made this build in such a way that it is extremely comfortable to play. And then you have the in-game items, which won't come until late game. You have Skin of the Lords, which gives +2 level of all your socketed gems. And then you have the Crimson Nightmare, which converts all elemental res and fire res into block at 50% of its value. This is part of the reason why we don't have to invest too much in block. In fact, we only take one full block wheel and one spell block wheel, plus our Ascendancy, and we're fully block capped. 100% of the time, no matter what, unconditional. And then we have Fortress Covenant, which is essentially just a damage increase. I really only use it for the 45% damage increase. I never liked the idea of them taking increased damage, but like also transforming some of the other passives that I really want. So we really just use this for damage. But I digress. I just want anyone that's new to this to understand how it works, why it works, and really just how amazing it is. Even from level 4 or 6, or excuse me, level 8, when you get Infernal Legion, I mean, you're just going to fly through the campaign. This is one of the most underrated skills in Path of Exile, and nobody plays it because it can be clunky if it's not set up correctly. However, I have set this all up correctly for you, and you're going to love this. And if you don't, you're just wrong. I'm kidding. Everyone has their taste. So, with that said, let's get into the POB. This is our POB. It was originally 2. Now it's 1 full, comprehensive POB. And it's all just beautiful. It's very lovely. We're going to go through the loadout system. So, all you should have to do as a new player or somebody new to this build is whichever one of these is appropriate to where you're at in your character. Your skills will be changed. Your tree will be changed. Config will be changed. Items will be changed. I want to preface up front, 1, 2, and 3 do not have any gear. They don't have any items, save for maybe a couple of jewels here and there. And this is mainly because during the campaign, you're choosing whatever your socket. It doesn't matter. Like if the gear has the sockets that you need, that's the piece of gear you're using. Just period. So there's really no point in putting gear because we're not itemizing gear until we get to maps. Okay, so now that all that's out of the way, you understand how to use loadouts. You understand what's going on. I'm going to try to go through this very quickly because there's a lot here, and I'm not trying to do a 45-minute video. Okay, first things first, notes section. There is a wealth of information here, including what you need and how much what it's going to cost you in your lab to get the stuff that you need. This line is very important. Like all this stuff, this isn't like, oh, I already know what I'm doing. Read it, okay? It's there for a reason, and it's there to enhance your experience and make sure that you don't come back to my channel and say, dude, your build kind of blows. Well, did you read? Do your due diligence like I did my due diligence? If that's not the case, then don't comment, please. Don't waste your time because I'm going to roast you. But if you did do your due diligence, then I won't find you in the comments with anything other than praise because I did most everything that I needed to do. And in the off chance that I did something wrong or I messed up, please let me know. And I would be happy to take accountability and change whatever needs to be changed so that I can make your experience better. Now, for Lab 1, I opted to do Lab 1, 2, and 3 just to kind of streamline the POB process. You can really go whatever direction you want to here, like starting from level 1. However, I would recommend the very first 6 points need to go to minion instability because as soon as we get SRS, we're going to be using it. Level 4, right? And then level 8, we get Infernal Legion and we're off to the races. You're officially playing the minion instability build that you're going to be playing at level 100. Just a lot juicier, right? So once you get this, grab this, come up here, get some life, come around here, get some more minion damage and duration, and then fill out these travel nodes on your way. We have X1, level 1 to 4 Fireball. Feel free to use whatever starting skill you want. I just kind of like Fireball. I just think it's kind of fun. And then level 4 to 100 is essentially just SRS and the SRS of enormity. And then we have SRS with Infernal Legion and Combustion, which is going to lower the fire res. And then we have Frostblink, Vitality, Bone Offering, and Ray Zombie with added lightning damage. We do use zombies in this build. Feel free to drop in a Clarity. You're not really going to need it. You have mana pots. It's really not that big a deal. I don't find it to be. And I like having like a large pool of mana to just kind of pull from. And then we have Act 2, our Act 2 gem setup, and then our Act 3 gem setup. It's all very self-explanatory. Mana consumption, seed leveling, section of notes. Fixture of Fate gems listed in the notes section. Boom, we have that right here. And so, everything in the skills should be very self-explanatory. Look what it is, get the links, and you'll be set. Pretty much the whole way through. And then for Lab 2, let's go ahead and go to the tree so you can see the change. Oh, also, sorry, Lab 1, our first ascendancy is Mindless Aggression. This is, for our particular build, because we're minion instability and our SRS scales off of damage, this is actually a double dip node. ascendancy. So we're actually getting 30% because the live scales our damage and the raw damage scales our damage. So this is a very, very powerful node, and this is going to really push you to Act 8. Like, I mean, you're going to fly. It's going to be crazy. You're just going to fly through the campaign. And then we have Lab 2, and Lab 2, obviously, for those that know, it's in Act 8. You're starting to get towards the end of the campaign. You probably got a fair bit of energy shield. Go ahead and put on Eldritch Battery. And essentially what this does, it moves the energy shield from life to mana. And thus we use energy shield to cast all of our spells, every single one. So I would recommend anywhere between acts, 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, probably 6 to 8. Try it out. If it doesn't feel good, then wait till you get a few more ES pieces, maybe some campaign upgrades, and then just unallocate it until you get that, and then try it again. I am every single playthrough that I've ever done, I've always been Eldritch Battery in the campaign, and then at that point, I mean, nothing is stopping you. You don't need mana pots anymore. You're a full utility flask set up, Quicksilver and life, and you're set. I would recommend if you really want to min max 15% of max life, if there's no life modifiers on your chest, you can swap between these depending on what upgrades you get for your chest piece. I certainly recommend that. It does actually help. And then we come here, we get sacrifice. What I usually do is I'll finish out the lab 1, and then I'll come up here, get this so my zombies stay alive. And then I'll come through here and I'll get all my minion stuff, and then I'll come down here, start getting our block together. Right, because in Act 2 we get Mistress of Sacrifice, right? This is a big one. We get skill effect duration, and this whole ascendancy is just perfectly tailored to this build. Our offerings affect us. If you'll notice in Act 4, which is where I do my second lab, we use Bone Offering. So now the Bone Offering, the block that the minions get, we also get at 50% of its value, mind. That is pretty incredible. That's quite a bit of block that we're getting, and it's only going to get better from there. I would heavily advise to not go Commander of Darkness, because you're essentially going to give your SRS 30 all res, which means they're going to get 30 fire, which means they're going to be at 70 fire res. Your SRS at 70 fire res might not even reach the low life threshold before the duration runs out. So you only go Commander of Darkness when you have this Tavu Kai necklace. That is the only acceptable time to ever get Commander of Darkness. If you don't have this, you don't have Commander of Darkness. If you do, you're good to go. And that, I mean, it's really straightforward. That's really it. You can just as well go down here and get this stuff, and then come up here and get this stuff, the minion stuff last in this particular loadout. It's fully up to you. There's no wrong way to do it. As far as changes go, I don't know because minion accuracy is not a thing anymore, and this wheel might just be completely gone. I'm not 100% sure. I don't really see Spiritual Command going away, so I'm assuming that like these nodes might just go away in some fashion, and these might actually stay. So rest assured that when we do get an updated tree, I will also be updating the POB. This wheel as well also is getting changed. The accuracy is going away, and we're just getting free chaos res, which is really amazing. And then we have our Act 4 skills, and then Acts 5, 6, and 7 says from this point onward, follow the same gem setup as the end game, and that would be level 85. That's our first end game, and you can just follow this setup right here, Skitterbots, Infernal Legion, and it'll be the same thing for Lab 3, 8, 9, and 10. You can follow this from this point forward, follow the end game, blah, blah, blah. Gem -2 supports because it's still early, right? So our SRS of Enormity is still on a 4 link because there's no way we're going to get lucky enough to get a 5 link in the campaign, though it does happen. It is very rare, though it does happen. And here is our level Lab 3 tree. You see we're getting Grave Pact, 20% increased effect of offerings. We're getting the cast speed wheel. And this is something else that I would like to touch on. Do not use SRS of Enormity until you have this cast speed wheel. Let me repeat, you are not allowed to use enormity until you get this wheel. But why, Tables? Why? Because the cast speed on enormity is a bit higher than the base gem SRS, and it just feels clunky to play. It feels like crap. If you have cast speed like on a wand, you just happen to have it, then yeah, I mean, feel free to use it to your heart's content. But as a base, if you don't have anything and you want to use it early, then get this wheel early if you really want to. Like, if you get this early and don't get something else, like, the build isn't bricked, right? Just make sure that you have this wheel before you use enormity, or else it's going to feel terrible. You're going to be like stuck in animation space while you're casting. It's terrible. It sucks. Race Specters for the campaign, I really just recommend getting a couple of Tukahama's Vanguards, right? These are Act 6 mudflats. Very easy to find. It's the guys that drop the totems that do the Scorching Ray. These guys will inflict fire exposure for you, especially nice for the campaign bosses, really tanky rares, rogue exile, whatever. So I recommend running 2 of those until you can get a Pale Seraphim. That's my recommendation to you as far as Specters are concerned, because by this time in Lab 3, the gem setup's slightly different. Tempest Shield, right? We have a Stone Golem and a Race Spectre. Eventually, we will have an Animate Guardian, but it's not worth running it in the campaign. Just either buy one that's level 20 or level it up when you get to maps, and then you can collect all the gear. Oh, also, I'm so sorry. Level 3, generally, by this time, I have a Tabukai. Most of the time. Not every time, but most of the time, I have a Tabukai. And that's the reason why Commander of Darkness is allocated. If you don't, what's the rule? If you don't have Tabukai, you don't run Commander of Darkness. That's the rule. The rule. You run Bone Barrier. If you have Tabukai, you're running Commander of Darkness. That's it. That's all that needs to be said. Remember, like, burn that into your mind, please. All right, so you're done. You're officially done with the campaign, and now you've moved into maps. You're getting to a point where you can do your Uber Lab. Your Uber Lab is Bone Barrier. It's quite good. Gives you a lot of physical damage reduction. And, your minions gain some energy shield, which really doesn't matter all that much because they're going to die anyways. So it's kind of whatever. We also pick up a nice little, very basic Cluster Jewel medium 6 passive. Minions have 12% increased max life. The only thing we're looking for right here is, I mean, you could really just get Hulking Corpses. Dread March is kind of nice, but it's not in the in-game cluster. But if you happen to, sometimes you just get it. These are extremely easy to roll. These are literally 1 chaos on League Start. They are worthless. Nobody is buying them because nobody likes this build except for the people that watch my channel. So this should be very, very easy to set up and get. And then, we got some more, masteries, and we're starting to get our jewels together. And then, now we've got 4 jewel sockets. We got some very basic jewels. And now I want to talk about a very specific interaction. Okay. So raise zombie combustion. Very, very, very important. I'm having you level with this setup to get the gems leveled up, but you're not actually getting the benefit of combustion until you get a Ghastly Eye Jewel that has the mod minions deal X to X additional fire damage. Ray zombies are pure fizz minions. They don't even have the capability to ignite because they don't deal fire damage. But as soon as you give them even 1 single damage of fire, like melee fire damage, then they suddenly have the availability to ignite from combustion. It gives them a 25% chance. And as long as they're igniting, they are reducing the fire res by 10%. And because that's the only element being damaged to the target, they also get another 10% from Elemental Army. And then they also give us Feeding Frenzy, which is like incredible. We love it. We're a big fan. And so it's just very, very, very important to note. 1 single gem in your entire, even level 100 setup has to have minions deal X to X additional fire damage. Only 1. It could be the literal most garbage roll there is, as long as the roll is there, right? And as far as our gear goes, it's extremely basic. Regular Rumi's concoction to help finish up our block. And then we have a convoking wand with +1 level, no extra mods, very run-of-the-mill, easy peasy. We're already doing 6 to 7 mil damage on, like, you literally find this wand in like X6. You can find these in a vendor. This shield, you can find a better one in the campaign. A +1 level helmet, very easy to find, very cheap. A 85 HP Saints Hallbrick, so that I like running the I really like running the hybrid bases early to make sure that we have enough ES to sustain our Eldritch battery. And then the rest is just fire, res, movement speed. We have our Tavukai, right? By the time you hit maps, this is your very first purchase before you do anything else. I don't care if you want to, every single chaos, whatever it costs, Tavukai is your very first buy. Nothing else matters, period. Once you get that, then you can get a clear, a sepia, and a black, which are not very expensive. Like at all. You could do some blight during the campaign and probably get what you need. And this is going to give us 10% block, right? Important because we currently don't run Nightmare early, so we're missing a bunch of blocks. So in order to cap our block, as soon as we hit white and yellow maps, we're capped, right? We're done, we're good. Because we have Mr. Sacrifice increasing the duration of our bone offering buff, and we have 20% effect offerings, plus Testudo, plus the block wheel, plus the spell block. That puts us at 75, 78 spell block. Tempest Shield, of course, obviously, we are shock immune in this build. And because all that is on a trigger craft, you have 100% permanent 75, 78 block. There is no situation other than being silenced that you would ever not be at max block. And this is the way that I've designed this build. So that as soon as you hit maps, you're like already pretty pseudo tanky. You're not tanky as far as max hit goes, but you are tanky as far as if you play your cards right and you don't be a buffoon and just run into packs willy-nilly, you're not really going to die very often. It's going to be an afterthought at that point. And, you know, obviously our max fizz goes up quite a bit. Make sure you get your trigger. It's a suffix. It's a crafting bench mod. And then make sure that Desecrate is the first link, Bone Offering is the second link, and these two are linked, right? So that when it triggers the first time, it drops the corpses. And then 8 seconds later, when it triggers the second time, it consumes the corpses with Bone Offering, and you and your minions get the block buff, which lasts however long it lasts, which by the time it re-triggers Desecrate and then re-triggers Bone Offering, it's just you end up overlapping your durations, so you just always have max block no matter what. It's really, I love it. It's one of my favorite things. And that pretty well concludes the level 85 setup. The level 90 setup is not a whole lot different, besides the fact that we're grabbing these two passives as well as picking up another jewel. And this is just like another Cobalt or Ghastly, whichever one you can get your hands on. You know, beggars can't be choosers. It's early game. And that's really all that's changing with that. Not too much is changing with the skills themselves. There is going to be a fairly decent change once you hit level 95. The gear themselves, all I did for 90 was just add another mod to most of the items. Right, so now we have a +2 helm. Now we have a +1 trigger and 40% damage. Right, the jewels stay the same. They're real freaking basic. And we finally get to run bone rings. Right, by the way, now that we're running Testudo, now that we're running Tavukai with Testudo, well, now we can run bone rings to our heart's content, because we're draining their life with chaos damage. So I don't really care what the fire is. Like, who cares? I don't care. It's whatever. Nobody cares. I don't even know why I'm talking about it. It's such an afterthought. And so level 95, this is where things start to get, this is where you start getting into your real true in game. You start really buying your pieces. You start stacking your currency, and you really start being thoughtful about your upgrades. And so with the level 95 tree, this is where you see a significant detour in the actual skill tree. And you can see it here in real time, right? We're using this area to link all these other passives. And then we change, and we go up here and we grab these more efficient spell block nodes. And we're coming down here and we're getting Tireless, we're getting Constitution, and we're also at this point running Red Nightmare, right? And so now, once you hit this point, you can unallocate Testudo because you don't need that block anymore. And what you end up with is Fearsome Force, which is this little bad boy right here, which is a 20% crit multi. This is a very, very rare mod to get. It's very hard to come by en masse for minions. And so it's really, I mean, this mod alone is 1.6 mil, right? So, and then our skills, I want to go over, actually, I'm not done with this. So the Red Nightmare, right? It's I want y'all to really pay attention. It's very important, because when I was doing the consolidation, I even missed it, and it took me like 20 minutes to figure out why it wasn't working. So it says fire damage and all LE res also grants block attack damage at 50% of its value, right? So we have LE res here, LE res here, LE res here, and I wasn't getting the block, and then I forgot I have tattoos, right? So we do 4 fire res tattoos to bolster our block even more. And now in the in-game setup, we're 75-75, no Rumi's concoction. The only thing that is required is that we have a trigger craft, and we have Desecrate and Bone Offering in our wand. And then you will always be at max block no matter what. It's amazing. Now for the skills, there's a couple of things I want to go over. Right, we do use Molten Shell. I use it constantly. If I ever feel like I'm even remotely taking damage, I press it. If I know that, like, I always press it before I open a strongbox. I always press it when I bust open an essence, right? There's no reason not to. So essentially, if you want more damage, Skitterbots. If you want to be more tanky, Flesh and Stone. But in order to be more tanky with Flesh and Stone, you need to be up close and personal. They need to be within that aura radius. You'll get more max fizz hit with Flesh and Stone, but you'll lose damage. You'll get more damage, but lose max fizz. I leave it up to you. These are, you could run this wand with 3 white sockets, and these are interchangeable. If you want a boss with more damage, by all means. If you want to be more tanky in maps, use this. So I leave it up to you guys to decide how you want to play. This gym setup doesn't change from 95 to 100. This is your setup. And then we have Ray Specter, Minion Life, Meat Shield. And finally, we are running Animate Guardian. I choose to not get this set up until the end game, mainly because before Animate Guardian would just die, and you'd have to rebuy everything. So it wasn't really worth it until you could really get it min-maxed and then just start running it. That's not the case anymore now. So if you're more than welcome to drop Stone Golem and run Animate Guardian earlier if you really want to. But again, that's up to y'all. You can change how you want, whatever suits your needs. Then we have Timber Shield, Determination, Vitality, and Frostplank. And then Zombie with the same setup that we've had in the campaign. Works extremely well. We have 7 zombies, 3 specters. That gives us 10 minions, which helps fulfill the requirements of Bone Barrier. So those 10 minions are getting us 10 fizz dam reduction, which is very, very nice. And at this point, this is something that I want to discuss specifically for the end game, specifically for when you get into red maps and you really start kind of pushing your juice. I highly, highly, highly recommend. I know like gem swapping is like, it sucks. But the sad fact is that SRS clear is pretty terrible. It's slow. You have to wait for the pops. it's kind of annoying. And so I put my thinking cap on, and I came up with a way to not make it suck. It's not Deadeye level clear, but it's pretty decent for what it is. I'm very happy with it. So your bossing setup is enormity, empower, minion life, crit damage, right? Because SRS of enormity always crits. It's the best thing ever. And because they always crit, they always ignite, right? This is very, very important, right? I want you to keep that in mind. And then we have LE Focus and Unleash, Awakened Unleash, mind you. In this way, for bosses, we can just batch cast 5 SRS at one time over and over and over. So you batch cast 5, they go and explode. Batch cast the next 5, they go and explode. And you're just doing these massive chunks of damage, right? Because they're each hitting for 4.3 in this section of the POB. I run LE Focus because ignites on bosses, they're not powerful enough. You're not really going to notice a difference. It's just LE Focus is just better. However, another setup that I really enjoy is running Infernal Legion. Now, obviously, our fire res is pretty much capped out at this point, but that's still 40% is still quite a bit, even at max res. And so you take the 20% chaos and the 40% fire, and your pops really start to get snappy. I mean, really fast. I'm talking maybe a second and a half before they just immediately pop. And so this is also a strategy that I like to run because, frankly, it makes the build feel very comfortable, very snappy, very smooth. Whereas this setup without the Infernal Legion is just really just there for raw damage output, right? You want to get the most efficiency out of each cast. And then we have our mapping setup. Awaken Unleash goes by the wayside. You don't really need it while you're mapping. And I say this because the way that I map is I just single cast each enormity, because once they explode, they ignite, and then we run Ignite Prolif, and that ignites doing what, 1,200, or excuse me, not 1,200, 1.2 million. And even in a pretty damn juiced T16, you're going to notice a massive difference in your clear. I mean, you're just going to be shield charging cast, shield charge cast. You're going to be absolutely zooming through the map, and everything's going to be dropping like flies, right? So do not discount the Ignite DPS in maps. It really changes the game. And I honestly didn't like the build before I started doing this. And it was just something that I thought of and I tried, and it worked really well. So I really implore you guys to do some gem swapping. Like, if you know you're going to do a bunch of bosses, or you're doing all your Maven invitations, do your weapons, do your gem swap. It's absolutely worth it. You need to be doing this. And you know, if you're going to be doing a crap ton of maps, like maybe with a buddy, you know, run this. There is one caveat. Deli 80 to 100%. Ignite Prolif is like pretty much worthless. You're not going to see a lot of benefit. You're not really going to clear the screen with it anymore because they take such reduced damage, and your ignites are just not quite potent enough because this build is mainly focused on the hit of the explosion and not the ignite. So the absolute giga pinnacle mapping with like 80 to 100% deli stuff, just use the bossing setup. This build is fully capable of 80%. I don't think it's capable of 90. I don't think it's tanky enough, and I don't quite think we have consistent enough damage to do 100%. It just takes too long, and it's not very efficient. And now for the level 97 tree, not a whole lot changes. I think from this point on, from level 95 and up, your skills are the same. Your gear is the same. The config is almost the same. And it's really only the tree that kind of changes in any significant way, right? So you go from 95 to 97, we pick up these two passives right here, right? Because our passive tree kind of like got tweaked a little bit. And then from 97 to 100, we have a single energy shield node here to help with our Eldritch Battery. And then we have Spiritual Command, which gives us attack speed well, increases and reductions to minion attack speed also affect us. This is really here to make your shield charge feel like ultra snappy and ultra fast. And we have another tree here with that removed and those 2 points moving here to even further bolster our Eldritch Battery. You'll see here it says if more ES charge is needed. And then we have this one, which is, in my opinion, the best way to play this build. I think that the in-game level 100 endurance charges is the most optimal way. You're going to lose a bit of damage, but that damage is absolutely worth losing to get 3 just absolutely juicy endurance charges. Right? We end up with a 20k max Fizz, a 42 max LE. Our Chaos Res is now going to hopefully be capped with the change of this minion accuracy wheel, according to the patch notes. And, you know, now you're in a position where you're just absolutely annihilating damage. And you're a lot more tanky because you're using the endurance charges, right? You're at like 80 mil, 87 mil. So you're losing, probably 10-ish million damage, somewhere around there realistically. And you can come into the config if you want to see like all the min-max changes. All of these numbers, these are based on Guardian and Pinnacle. You know, we're still doing a decent amount of damage on Ubers. And then all the custom modifiers that you may or may not see. These are the Kingmaker, which is the pretty much BIS item for your Animate Guardian. And that's another thing that we need to go over. Now that we're done going through all the loadouts, we do have a budget Animate Guardian setup with Dying Breath, Learcast, very cheap. Doppelgangers, you can just as well use a rare chess piece because this can get very expensive. But if you have the currency, go ahead and set it up. Southbound and Inexorable Fate. Nearby stationary enemies gain Grasping Vine every 0.5 seconds. And the Animate Guardian takes 40% reduced extra damage from crits by poisoned enemies. And all damage inflicts poisons against enemies affected by at least 3 Grasping Vine. These are cheap, they're easy, and I enjoy using them. And then we have the like in-game, and all it really is the same stuff, but like the 20 div axe. This thing is ridiculously good. It is extraordinarily powerful for this build. This build in particular, because we get the multi, it makes us tankier, right? Because we get the fortification, and the SRS have Calling Strike. So it's just a really good axe to have, and I really recommend everyone really trick out their Animate Guardian, because you will see a sizable DPS increase, as well as survivability increase for yourself as well. So, but that, I think that kind of covers everything that that needs to be covered as far as maybe Specters go for the in-game setup. We have Pale Spectre, and we just run Pale Seraphim and Tukahama's Vanguard. We run that all the way through for really consistent exposure. I'm sure I may or may not end up updating this with some different ones during the league. So just be on the lookout for that. And whenever we get the new passive skill tree, I will make sure to update it before league start on Friday. And I think that's it. Oh my gosh, this is a 50-minute video. Ugh. I didn't want to go that long, but this can be a confusing build, and I really want to make sure that you guys are ready and set up and really just have everything that you need. So I'm just going to end it here. I'm going to get me some food, and I'm going to work on my Reaper POB, start getting that video ready for you guys. So I wish you guys a wonderful weekend. Be good, take care of yourselves, and God bless.